I'm sitting at my apartment window, the city lights flickering below like tiny fires, and my phone buzzes again. Another notification from him. Michael, though I already know what it is, without looking. I smooth the silk of my blouse, feeling the way it slides over my skin, and for a moment, I pretend I don't care. I tell myself I've moved on. I've built a life that's mine entirely. But the memory hits anyway. It wasn't just any argument. It was the night Michael chose Bruno, my brother's golden retriever, over me. Over us. Over my life in that marriage. He claimed it was loyalty, responsibility. The dog needed me more than you ever did. I laughed at him then, bitter, shocked, trembling, but inside, my heart splintered. I didn't cry in front of him. I never do. I've always carried my grief silently, like a jewel hidden in my pocket. Now, as I glance at the skyline from my corner penthouse, I feel that old hurt simmer beneath my calm exterior. The sound of the phone vibrating against the marble desk pulls me back. A message from my brother. He's asking about you again. I pinch the bridge of my nose and exhale slowly. Pride, fury, and a strange curl of humor wrap around each other in my chest. Funny, isn't it, how the same man who once dismissed me now seems curious about the life I quietly built without him. I stand, walking across the apartment, the rug soft under my feet. Tonight, everything changes. Tonight, he will see the Sophie Bennett he tried to ignore. I remember the night like it was yesterday. The house smelled faintly of wet grass and Michael's aftershave, a scent I once found comforting, now sharp and suffocating. I was 28, younger, more naive, and painfully loyal. I had poured everything into that marriage, into us, and yet, in the end, it had never been enough. Bruno, my brother's golden retriever, lay curled up at Michael's feet in the living room, wagging his tail as if he were the king of the house. And then Michael turned to me with that calm, infuriating certainty. "Sophie, he needs me more than you ever did," he said. My chest constricted. My hands shook, not from anger, but from disbelief. "You're joking," I whispered, gripping the edge of the counter. My voice trembled despite my effort to stay composed. "This isn't real." "It is," he said softly, almost tenderly, and that was worse. His eyes didn't waver. He had made a choice, and it wasn't me. I could feel the sting of rejection crawling up my throat, a hot, bitter knot forming there. Tears threatened, but I swallowed them down. Crying would have been weakness, and I didn't want him to see the damage he had done. Not then. Not ever. My grandmother's words from years ago surfaced in my mind, as if whispered from beyond. "You will find your own strength, Sophie. Never let anyone define your worth, not even the ones you love most." I had laughed at her once, thinking life was simpler, that love was everything. That night, her advice became a lifeline. I left the apartment, my heart raw, but my resolve hardening. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't chase. If he and his devotion to a dog could outweigh my existence, then they didn't deserve my tears. I packed a small bag, my laptop, my savings, and a notebook where I had scribbled dreams I'd been too scared to chase. Stepping out into the cool night air, I inhaled deeply, tasting freedom for the first time. The city stretched before me, vast and indifferent, but it was mine to conquer. I didn't know how yet, but I knew one thing. I would rebuild. On my terms. For the first time in years, I felt the thrill of possibility. Pain had brought clarity, and clarity brought power. And somewhere deep inside, a small spark of defiance whispered, "They'll see. They'll all see." The first few months after leaving Michael's apartment were brutal. I moved into a small studio downtown, the kind with creaking floors and a view of the alley rather than the skyline. Every day was a negotiation with myself. Survive, work, learn, and somehow thrive. I found a mentor almost by accident. Claudia Rivera, a seasoned interior designer with an impeccable reputation, spotted me sketching concepts for an apartment she was visiting. "You've got an eye," she said simply, handing me a cup of lukewarm coffee. That single sentence changed everything. Under her guidance, I learned the nuances of design, the art of networking, and more importantly, how to believe in my own talent. Nights were long. I worked on projects until my fingers ached and my eyes burned. Self-doubt crept in constantly. Was I really capable? Could I really escape the shadow of a marriage that had defined my worth? But each small victory built momentum. My first client was a modest loft. They were delighted with the transformation, leaving a glowing review that felt like a lifeline. Then came bigger contracts, a collaboration with a boutique hotel, and soon, whispers of Sophie Bennett designs began circulating in niche circles. Throughout it all, I kept my success quiet. Family calls went unanswered, social media posts were vague, and I avoided photo shoots that would broadcast my achievements. I wanted no one to see the woman I had become until I was ready. The thought of Michael discovering my independence early, seeing my power before I chose to reveal it, made me cautious. Still, the hardest part was self-doubt, the internal voice that said, "You're just lucky. You'll fail. What if they were right about you all along?" I countered it with action. Late nights spent perfecting proposals, early mornings drafting mood boards, and weekends networking relentlessly. Each small win, the first profitable sale, the first feature in a design magazine, felt like planting flags on a mountain I was climbing alone. There were moments of quiet joy, too. I bought a small golden retriever of my own, a little pup I named Marley. No one would ever come before him like Michael did. I laughed quietly when he chewed the corner of my notebook or slept across my laptop. He became my reminder that loyalty should never be demanded, it should be cherished. By the end of 2 years, Sophie Bennett Designs was not just a name, but a brand. I had clients who respected me, friends who supported me, and an independence I had once thought impossible. And through it all, I nurtured the quiet, simmering satisfaction of knowing I had built this life entirely on my terms. I was ready. Ready for the world to see. Ready for the confrontation that had haunted me for years. Tonight, everything would change. The elevator chimed, and I heard the hesitant footsteps before I saw them. Michael and my brother, Lucas, stepping into my office building as if they were about to visit a struggling little designer they had once dismissed. The irony made my chest tighten, a mixture of amusement and simmering satisfaction. I greeted them in the lobby, my tailored blazer sharp, my hair pulled back just so, a calm smile playing on my lips. "You found the right place," I said, my voice smooth but carrying an undercurrent of authority. They followed me into my office, and I let them take it all in. The room was elegant but personal. Abstract artwork from local artists, a wall lined with awards and framed features from design magazines, a carefully curated shelf with books I had devoured, and a sleek model of my most recent project. The scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air, mingling with faint cedar from the furniture I had designed myself. Michael's jaw tightened. Lucas's eyes darted around, disbelief written across his face. They had expected a small, frazzled woman clinging to the remnants of her marriage. Instead, they saw Sophie Bennett, independent, accomplished, and entirely untouchable. I motioned for them to sit, though I barely had to. My presence seemed to demand their attention. "I suppose you're wondering why I didn't call," I began, letting the words hang like a spotlight. Michael's lips parted, a wordless stammer caught in his throat. "After all, you've been asking consistently." I leaned against my desk, fingers drumming lightly. "I left because you chose a dog over me. Over us." That night, I realized I deserved someone who valued me, not someone who would measure loyalty in pounds of fur. Lucas swallowed hard, but I didn't let them off easy. I used what I had, my talent, my determination, my grandmother's advice, and I built a life you couldn't imagine. Sophie Bennett Designs is my creation. I am financially independent, respected in my field, and in control of my own destiny. Michael's face flushed, and I saw the guilt, the shock, the faint trace of regret. You're kidding," he whispered, disbelief thick in his tone. I shook my head. "No. You underestimated me. You underestimated my ambition, my drive, and my refusal to be invisible. I've been climbing while you were waiting for me to fail. And now?" You're here, and you finally see what I've built." Lucas's eyes shimmered with shame. Michael's gaze wavered between pride, anger, and guilt. I let them absorb it, letting the silence stretch. Power isn't in yelling, it's in letting others feel their own misjudgments. "And one more thing," I added softly, almost conversationally. "The next time you think someone's worth less than a dog, make sure you understand the consequences." I let a slow, deliberate pause hang, then stepped back, letting the weight of my words settle over them like a tangible presence. They looked at me now, really looked at me, and for the first time, I didn't feel hurt or powerless. I felt unshakable. I stood behind my desk, letting Michael and Lucas absorb the weight of the room and the truth of my life. For the first time, the balance had shifted. I held the power now, and I intended to use it wisely. "I'm willing to help," I began, my voice calm, measured but firm. Their eyes widened, disbelief clear on Michael's face. Lucas's shoulders stiffened, as if bracing for a lecture. "But there are conditions, and not meeting them isn't an option." Michael swallowed, nodding hesitantly. I continued. "First, Michael, you need to confront your tendency to place loyalty above humanity. You chose a dog over a human being, over me. Before anything else, you must understand the consequences of those choices. Therapy, introspection, anything to prevent repeating that pattern. And yes, that includes apologizing sincerely, not just for show." He nodded, voice low. I understand." Lucas shifted uncomfortably, and I turned to him. "You've enabled him, even when you knew the wrong he did. Your responsibility is to pursue your own life, not live in the shadow of past mistakes. You need to focus on growth, not guilt." I walked slowly around my office, letting the polished wood floors creak beneath my steps. "And both of you need to understand boundaries. You can no longer dictate my choices or expect me to bend to outdated patterns. Respect my decisions, my privacy, and my space." Michael's eyes flitted to the small golden retriever napping by my desk. Marley, my reminder of loyalty done right. I smiled faintly. "I have my own life now, one that I built without your validation. If you want to be part of it, you must accept it entirely or not at all." The air was thick, heavy with the unspoken acknowledgement of past mistakes. I let them sit in that silence, absorbing the magnitude of my words. Power isn't cruelty. It's clarity, structure, and firmness. It's giving people a choice, but only after showing them exactly where they stand. Finally, I leaned back against my desk, letting a small, satisfied smile curl on my lips. "I care for you both, but I refuse to sacrifice my peace or independence for old habits. If you're willing to change, grow, and respect my life, then maybe, just maybe, we can redefine our relationship. But the choice is yours." Michael nodded again, more earnestly this time. Lucas's eyes glistened with emotion, a mixture of shame and relief. And I felt something I hadn't in years. Control. Not over them, exactly, but over myself, my past, and my future. For the first time, I realized the full weight of my journey. I had been hurt, underestimated, and dismissed, but I had not only survived. I had grown. I had thrived. And now, the power was mine to wield, carefully, deliberately, and without compromise. Weeks passed after that confrontation, and slowly, subtly, change began to take root. Michael started attending therapy, his once defensive posture softening as he confronted patterns he had ignored for years. Lucas took small but meaningful steps toward his own independence, exploring passions he had shelved while living in the shadow of family expectations. I watched it all with a quiet satisfaction, feeling neither pride nor vengeance, just a deep, unshakable peace. I had carved out a life that was mine, entirely. The pain that had once weighed so heavily now felt like fuel, pushing me toward the woman I had always been capable of becoming. Marley lay on the rug beside my desk, chasing a toy absent-mindedly, and I smiled. That little golden retriever, once a symbol of my broken trust in Michael, had become a reminder of loyalty done right, mutual, cherished, never taken for granted. I reflected on my grandmother's advice, the words that had guided me through heartbreak and uncertainty. You will find your own strength, Sophie. Never let anyone define your worth. The phrase echoed in my mind like a mantra, a compass that had led me to this moment. I realized that strength isn't only about rising above, it's about living fully, with integrity, compassion, and the courage to honor yourself. Looking out over the city skyline from my office window, I felt a sense of clarity I had never known. I had been betrayed, underestimated, and overlooked, but none of that defined me. I was Sophie Bennett, independent, resilient, and unafraid. My success wasn't just measured in contracts, awards, or financial security. It was in the peace I felt, the boundaries I had set, and the relationships I now nurtured on honest terms. I picked up my pen and wrote a letter, an honest final one, to Michael, to Lucas, and to myself. It wasn't angry, it wasn't bitter. It was a testament of hurt acknowledged, lessons learned, and a life reclaimed. When I signed it, I felt the weight lift, replaced by a deep, glowing certainty. For the first time in years, I smiled without hesitation. The world hadn't broken me. It had polished me. I had chosen myself, and in that choice, I had found freedom, strength, and grace. And so, I whispered to the quiet room, the voice of every woman who has ever been underestimated. I am enough. I am unstoppable. And this is my life.